Hello and welcome to Fit2B. You're joining me for a plank progression. I get a lot of questions about these, and I want you to understand that you can do planks, but I want you to have your why dialed in, and I want them to be functional for you. So we're going to break this video down into several parts, and I'm going to have you stop after each part and practice those things for a few days. I don't want you to just slam through this video in one sitting. As much as you might think you should, I really want you to take your time with it. I want you to practice these things and then come back and do the next section, okay? So the first thing we're gonna talk about is a standing plank. Standing in good alignment is an awesome way to think about your planking ability. So can you keep your weight more in your heels? Can you lift your toes? Do you have the flexibility in your calves to have your ankles bent that much and keep your body in alignment, pubic bone and hip bones and rib bones stacked, head in line with your shoulders, and you're visualizing, okay, I'm planting my hands, I'm spinning the creases of my elbows forward, my fingers are spread out. Where are my weak spots? Can I even pull my wrists? Do I have flexibility issues there? Maybe you need to do some stretching here, okay? You need to line things up and be able to hang out here comfortably before you even drop it down to a different place. Now, the next step in this little section is taking it to a wall. So you can find a corner or a flat surface, and you're gonna line yourself up against that surface, but back your feet up so that you can make a line with your body and check in with your core. Can you keep your core, your transverse, engaged in this position with a little bit of gravity pulling it forward, okay? Can you spin the creases of your elbows to point up to the ceiling here? Can you round your upper back because you don't want to be settling into your joints here, okay? You want to round your upper back. Can you have a natural curve in your lower back? Can you lift your toes here? Can you move your head comfortably here? Can you breathe here? So just practice that a little bit here. You're going to inhale and exhale, keeping your transverse drawn in the whole time, bringing that breath more into your ribs, okay? So the belly stays about 25% engaged here, and then you're breathing through your low ribs. You're inhaling and expanding, and you're exhaling, contracting, and you're practicing that breath. You'll see a lot of plank challenge floating around where they're trying to get you to hold it for a long time. And if that is one of your goals, you need to practice it at different levels, okay? One more thing in this section, and then you're gonna take these little things and practice them every chance you get for the next several days. I'm gonna drop down onto my knees. So I'm just gonna do a simple reverse lunge, coming down into a high kneeling plank. I'm gonna move my microphone so that you can see my lines again, because what you're looking for here is, do you feel like you're not very flexible here in the front of your hips so that you are having trouble getting your hips forward and open? Can you relax your shoulders? Can you get your head back between your shoulders? And of course, people think, as always, oh, my head's always between my shoulders. A lot of people deal with forward neck posture, and then that ends up playing out in your plank, because then you're in a plank and your head is dropping and you're rounding too much, or you're tucking. So coming into this kneeling position and practicing this, visualizing how this would translate down into a modified plank, holding your hands out front. Think about spinning the creases of your elbows up, pulling your fingertips toward you, tuck your toes under to get that calf stretch, and do some breathing here, keeping your transverse about 25% engaged, and then inhaling through those upper and lower rib cage areas while keeping your lower abs nice and snug. So lifting and zipping and condensing that core, but not at such a deep level that you can't breathe, because you want to be able to sustain this, right? So those are the three things I want you to practice in these three positions: standing, just basic standing alignment, and then taking it to a wall, working on a little bit of an incline, and then high kneeling. So basic stuff. Do those three things several times a day over the next several days until you're convinced that they're super easy for you, and then come back for the next part of this video. Part 2 of plank progression takes us down into a prone position on hands and knees. you need to make sure that you've got that core control you've been practicing, because you don't want gravity just pulling your belly down, right? So you're going to exhale to engage before you even come down onto hands and knees. So tummy button in tight, not super tight, just tight enough. Lighter, not tighter, as Kelly Dean of the Tummy Team would say. Knees right underneath your hips, hip width apart. I'm going to have you go ahead and tuck those toes because we're practicing the calf flexibility we need for a full plank. Spin the crease of your elbows forward so you're rotating your humerus bone inside your shoulder socket. I'm going to root through the base of my first finger knuckle here. Make sure my hand is flat. I'm going to round my upper back. I'm going to let there be a little bit of an arch in my lower back. And I'm gonna either look down with my head lifted, or I can look ahead, especially if I'm losing my neck curve. That's a great exercise to pull the head all the way up. And I'm just gonna breathe here. I'm gonna check in with my core. And if I feel any doming or tenting or pointiness of my belly, beyond any extra fluff and love, right? Then that can be an indicator that my belly's not ready for more and I need to work on this more. I might need to go back up into high kneeling or the inclined plank against the wall and really build the core control and my ability to keep my transverse engaged while breathing around the rim of my ribs. Okay, so lower belly stays drawn up about 25%, and then my ribs are expanding and contracting, especially through the back of your ribs. We tend to be front chest breathers. We need to work on breathing through the back of our ribs here, okay? So you're inhaling and exhaling while keeping your low core hollowed out as much as you can. If you find yourself rounding when you exhale here, then there's something off in your connection, okay? You need to practice that. Now, once you've got this in place, what I really like people to do is then shift to a sideways perspective. So we're gonna rotate over onto our sides and prop on our elbows and knees and work on a little bit of side plank stuff. So you're gonna practice that hands and knees position and then your side plank where you're coming up and you're using your obliques and you're building the strength of one arm at a time to carry more weight. And then while you're here, do some good belly breaths in this position. Try reaching up with your hand, try straightening one leg, practice that. You can also, if you're getting tired, just work on holding this and lifting your body away from the floor, okay? And then the next level would be to practice the same thing with a straight arm. And you're gonna do this on both sides. So you can switch sides right now if you want to, but you're gonna come up so that your body makes a line. And notice how this looks an awful lot like that high kneeling position, where you're on your knees and your body is lined up. Your hips are open, your ribs are engaged, your head is on level with your body. You're building the strength in your obliques and your shoulders so that you can translate this into a full plank, which we will get to in the next session. So practice this on both sides. Practice that progression. Get your hands and knees, get your elbows and knees, and then try hand and knees. Play with that for a few days, maybe even a week. Try it every day just for a few breaths. Fit it in wherever you can, and then come back for part 3. Okay, so you're here for part 3 of the plank progression. And this is exciting because we're starting to get into some real deep motions that are going to really activate your core, but we're still not even getting to a full plank. By the time you get to a full plank, you're going to be so ready for it, it's going to feel easy. And that's the goal, that we sneak you into these harder things, right? So we're going to go back to that hands and knees position, okay? And you're spinning the creases of your elbows forward and you're rooting through the base of the first finger knuckle and you're rounding that upper back so you're not just sinking into your joints, your muscles are carrying the load. Now, I want you to straighten one leg and I want you to think about how there is work happening now in that leg and you're basically in a 3-leg plank, okay? How awesome is this? Lift the back of your knee toward the ceiling. Feel the work in your quadricep. Feel the work in your entire body. Lift your core up to the ceiling. Practice that 25% activation and that rear rib breath.